Champions League for next season confirmed. Declan Rice comes up clutch against Newcastle to pretty much wrap up second place. We'll discuss the game itself, Arteta's post-match comments, the mood inside Emirates Stadium as we played our final home game of the season, Josh Kroenke's comments, and more on today's episode of the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast. Let's get into it. Hey everybody, how's it going? Happy Monday. Welcome back to another live episode of the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast with me, your host, Harry Symeou. Apologies to our live streamers. I'm a little bit late just because my son came into my office over the weekend on Sunday. He said, Dad, I really want to go and I want to watch a film, but my sister keeps playing really loudly and distracting me and driving me crazy. Could I please go in your office and watch the film there? And I thought, go on, needs a bit of time, needs a bit of space, needs a bit of a breather from his crazy little sister. So he comes in here, and what does he do? Creates absolute carnage. Adjusted my camera. It was pointing the completely wrong way. All my shirts are all messed up. There is paper all over my desk that he's been drawing on. He's left pens with the lids off. You name it, he's done it. He's created absolute carnage in here. So I'll be having words later when he gets back from school. But we're here now. We're live. Good to see lots of you with us in the live chat. And looking forward to reflecting on yesterday because, look, winning yesterday doesn't put right everything that went wrong this season. Winning yesterday doesn't mean that we don't need a post-mortem in the summer, that we aren't going to be looking at the club with a great deal of scrutiny based on what they're going to do this summer. None of that changes. But winning yesterday, meaning that we qualified for the Champions League, which some people would have told you was in doubt, and that we pretty much have managed to finish second, barring a mathematical miracle now. You know, you've got to say that at least getting the result yesterday makes things okay. It doesn't make them good. It doesn't prop things up. It doesn't put us in the position that we dreamed of being at the start of the season. But winning yesterday just kind of restored the calmness, I think, to how we're all feeling and our outlook for the summer. So, yeah, really, really important win in that sense. And obviously getting back in the Champions League for a third consecutive season is important in terms of our club continuing to take forward steps. I always talk about other clubs, you know, in the Champions League. I talked a lot about Villa this season on the radio, and I've talked a lot about Newcastle. And I've said, look, it's all well and good getting in the Champions League on the odd occasion, but you need to do it consistently if you want your club to really progress and take steps forward. And obviously, this is our third season in it. It should have been a given, really, at the start of the season that we were going to qualify for the Champions League. It proved that that wasn't the case because we've had to take it down to the penultimate day of the season to get that wrapped up. But we've done it now. And obviously, second place looks like it's ours. And as I've been saying for a long, long time now, it's really, really important that we show people that our bottom line is second nowadays. That in itself shows the progress. Okay, let's have a look at what some of you guys are saying in the chat. Good morning to every single one of you. Andrew says, what's with this job done crap? Wenger years continue with top four being a trophy. When I say job done, I mean job done. Is it the job that we wanted to get done at the start of the season? No. Nobody's saying that. Nobody's trying to play that card. Nobody's sitting here going, finishing second is a bloody amazing achievement. Nobody's saying that. Nobody's saying that for a second. But job done in the sense of we went into yesterday's game against a very tough opponent, against a side that were breathing down our neck, a side who have had lots and lots of praise this season. We went into a game against them and we needed to win it to fend them off in the race for second place. And we needed the point to secure UEFA Champions League football for next season. So to that point, it is job done. What else have we got? Rob says yesterday was not enjoyable. It wasn't enjoyable during the game. No, it wasn't. You're absolutely right. I didn't enjoy it one bit. Didn't enjoy it one bit. Junior Hal says, just on my little boy Harry, the man was filming Chronicles of a Junior Gooner. Cut him some slack. I wouldn't mind, like, if he actually wanted to do something and he said, Dad, can I do this or can I do? He just said, Dad, I'm going to go and watch a film. But it was all under false pretenses. What he really wanted to do was mess around with all the stuff that I normally don't let him mess around with, basically. So yeah. Cannon Talk says the comments from Josh Kroenke and the manager suggest the post-mortem has begun on their part. Certainly feels that way. You're right. Afsar says seeing Crystal Palace win was great. Absolutely. Just on that very, very quickly. I've told you guys before, I've got a soft spot for Crystal Palace. I spent the first 7 years of my life living in that area. And when I was a little kid and I couldn't go to football games by myself and my dad was working, I had a friend whose dad would on occasion take us all down to Crystal Palace. I've covered them a few times since working for BBC Radio London as well. So they are a team that I've got a soft spot for, and I was pleased to see them get over the line on Saturday. What a win that was. Really, really was. Tom says, good morning, Harry and chat. Happy with that victory after 3 times failing to beat Newcastle in a row. Junior Gunner says, glad we got one over them. Can't stand those Geordies. Hope they fall out of the Champions League spots. I never, ever in the past had a problem with Newcastle United, but there has become, or there has, we've seen a little bit of a rivalry develop, haven't we? A bit of needle develop in this fixture. And I thought my favorite moment of the game yesterday, right? And I think I posted about this on X, was when Eddie Howe and Jason Tyndall, the duo, the double act, were standing outside their technical area, which is ironically the thing they were complaining about Mikel Arteta doing all game, and literally berating the 4th official because they felt that Arsenal were wasting time. Do you remember that game at the Emirates a couple of seasons ago where it set a record for the lowest amount of minutes in which the ball was actually in play? We drew 0-0. They came to Emirates Stadium and they stunk the place out. They literally stunk the place out. They start games against us with back fives. And then they've got the cheek. I mean, have some shame, lads, to stand on the edge of their technical area and moan about David Raya taking a bit too long over a goal kick or a free kick, whatever it was. Crazy. Right, let's start breaking down the game then in a bit more detail. I do want to start off by discussing the team selection. A bit of a surprise to me, actually, that Declan Rice was back in the fold. I know it was a big game, but I did wonder when he missed out at Anfield last weekend if we'd see Declan Rice again in the Premier League this season, because he's been obviously carrying something for a little bit. I think you could see that particularly in the first leg against PSG. You could see it in the game against Bournemouth that we played as well. So he hasn't been looking great recently. And I just wondered if they would take a decision to kind of leave him out. Perhaps the suspension to Mikel Merino made that more difficult for Mikel Arteta and his staff to do. And so Declan Rice came back into the side. And I actually thought Declan Rice started the game quite slow. We'll come on to that in a little bit. But the rest of the team was Raya in goal. White continued at right back. Saliba, Kivior and Lewis Skelly made up the rest of the back line. Odegaard, Partey and Rice with the midfield. Trossard played up front with Martinelli operating from the left and Bukayo Saka playing in his position on the right. But I guess the big team news going into the game was, this man, Kai Havertz, was back in the picture. Obviously, he's been out for a long, long time. He's been out since we played, since just after we played Newcastle in that Carabao Cup semi-final when we went on warm weather training, and he managed to pick up that injury that saw him require surgery. But the recovery's been fantastic in terms of the sort of speed of it. Interestingly as well, Mikel Arteta had kind of really talked up Kai Havertz's physical condition, hadn't he? He talked a lot about, him breaking metrics and showing a real kind of desire and urgency to get back to full fitness. He does look like he's bulked up, I was watching him on the sidelines as he was about to come on, and I did look at him and think, bloody hell, you have been hitting the gym, haven't you, during this period of time? So at least he's put that time to good use. But before we kind of go into sort of breaking down the game itself and then some of the post-match stuff and all the rest of it, because I get the sense from some of the comments in the chat that, people are, okay, unhappy with how the season's gone, generally speaking, because they felt that we should have won the league. I think most of us feel that. Most of us feel like we could have gone that one step further in the Champions League as well. Most of us feel like we should have progressed past Newcastle in that League Cup semi-final. We certainly should have progressed beyond the third round in the FA Cup. But there was a graphic going around yesterday, and I haven't uploaded it onto my screen to be able to show you guys, but just have a look at that, right? So Tomiyasu, 55 games he's missed this season. You got Gabriel Jesus, he's missed 27. Ben White, 26. Calafiori, 23. Saka, 23. Havertz, 23. Tierney, 18. Odegaard, 15. Gabriel, 15. Zinchenko, 13. Timber, is that Timber? Yeah, Timber, 12. And Mikel Merino, 11. Now, it's not that I'm sitting here and saying, oh, it's only about injuries. And some people will be, wanting to pick holes in this argument, right? There will be people that go, well, we've got cover for Tomiyasu, so it's not really a problem. Or Gabriel Jesus doesn't score enough goals anyway. Or Kieran Tierney isn't a starter in this Arsenal team anyway. Neither is Alexander Zinchenko these days. But there are players in there, right? Ben White was a starter going into this season. Calafiori, was a big money signing in the summer. Bukayo Saka, Kai Havertz, and Gabriel Martinelli. That is an Odegaard as well. That's three of our front five, if you like. There's a lot of players that would have played a lot of football. I think actually Martinelli might have even been left off this list. He's missed games as well. Mikel Merino, we bought him in at the start of the season, and he suffered that injury, and he was out for a couple of months. The point I'm trying to make is that we have had a lot of problems. And I think only when it's listed like that can you really understand the scale of it and understand why we've ended up where we are. Could we have done better regardless of that? I think we could have. Are there steps we could have taken to ease that problem? Yeah, certainly in the January transfer window, I feel. But it has been a rotten season in that sense. And I'm delighted that we can draw a line under it. Now, yes, we've got one more game to come against Southampton, but it looks like we've wrapped up second and we've qualified for the Champions League. So it feels to me like the season is done. Can we add a little bit more positivity to the kind of mindset by going and winning at Southampton on the final day? Yeah, maybe we can. But ultimately, the season's done. And so the post-mortem, which I would argue already began, weeks and weeks ago, it can really kind of kick in now and you can really start to reflect. I always feel like after the final home game of the season, when you see the lap of appreciation, when the manager speaks to the fans, when the captain speaks to the fans, I always feel at that point, I'm in a really kind of reflective mood. And I certainly felt that coming away from Emirates Stadium yesterday. But on the game itself, more specifically, it very much was a game of two halves, wasn't it? Raya was excellent in the first half, made some really smart stops. Newcastle were a big, big threat. I think they'd managed something like 8 shots at goal in the first 15 to 20 minutes against us. So they really were knocking on the door, causing us problems. And again, at half time, I was looking at us as a team and thinking we just haven't created enough. I can remember Nick Pope making a really good save from a Thomas Partey header at the near post. But again, that was from a set piece situation rather than something that we were able to create in open play. And then there was that Leandro Trossard effort where he sort of dropped the shoulder, stepped inside from that left-hand side and got the shot off, which was deflected slightly wide. I can see there's some criticism for David Raya in the chat box. He did gift Newcastle a couple of chances. You're absolutely right to say that with some of his wayward passing. But he did make some really, really good stops and some smart stops that ultimately ensured that we kept them at bay at least. For me, the Rice goal, though, it just completely lifted the mood and atmosphere. It's all been a bit flat around Arsenal for quite some time, and people will criticize the fans for it. And we heard a lot of criticism directed our way after the PSG game when people felt that we weren't very lively as a supporter base and that the atmosphere in the stadium was somewhat questionable. But you can't help how you feel sometimes. And when the season curtails the way ours has, when the season dwindles out the way ours has, we knew we weren't going to win the league for ages. And then you're kind of clutching on to this UEFA Champions League dream, desperately trying to get over the line in that competition. A, because you want to make history, but B, because you kind of need it, given that you've really struggled in the one that people felt you were definitely going to win going into the campaign. You kind of need something. And we were clutching on to that Champions League dream so tightly. And then when that was taken away from us, everybody crashed, myself included. I mean, the games after we went out to PSG have felt at times like a chore. I'm not embarrassed to say that. It doesn't make me less of a fan, less of a supporter, but I can't help my feelings. And so when you turn up to a game, unless you get something that gives you that feeling again, it's very, very hard to kind of just generate that feeling from a place where you're feeling really, really low. And listen, feeling low this season versus feeling low 7, 8 seasons ago is very different, because we are in a much better position as a football club. You know, when you think about it, most fan bases in world football would take making a Champions League semi-final and finishing runners-up and say, actually, that's a really good season. There's only a select few group of clubs, a select few elite clubs that would say that's failure. And the fact that people are saying that about us, it in itself indicates how far we've come. So yeah, I'm feeling a little bit low and feeling reflective, as I mentioned, after the final home game, as I always do. But I'm not angry anymore. Like, I've had time to process it. I've had time to get used to the idea. But that Rice goal, it really did change the mood and lift the atmosphere. And it gave us something to hold on to. And I think we really needed that, because we looked dead on our feet. And you can talk about the tactical aspects and the tactical elements, and you can argue that, you know, certain managers have Mikel Arteta's number tactically, and that there are certain systems that we really struggle to thrive against. Bottom line, guys, we look knackered. We look absolutely shattered. And we're having to get through games with very little in the tank, you know, and that's leading to periods of that game being really poor in terms of the performance levels. I thought the first half performance was poor, but we started the second half well. Once we get the goal through Declan Rice, the pattern of the game changes a little bit. We can play a little bit more of a transitional game, and we can drop off a bit and make sure that we don't give anything away. But just on Declan Rice, because obviously he scores that sensational goal yesterday, which basically wraps up second place, which qualifies Arsenal for the UEFA Champions League. And we've spent a lot of the season, I think, debating about whether Rice is actually suited to playing in that number 8 role. But the reality is that Declan Rice's game has evolved. It is changing, and it's changing all the time. And I would argue for the better. Now, he wasn't this player prior to joining Arsenal. He simply wasn't this player. The change of role has obviously made a difference in terms of the outputs that he can now produce. Playing in a stronger side has helped in terms of the outputs he can produce. But to put into context how much Declan Rice has improved at Arsenal, and how much Rice has added goals and assists to his game, I want to share some statistics with you. In 245 games for West Ham United, Declan Rice only managed 15 goals and 13 assists, so 28 direct goal contributions. In 102 appearances for Arsenal, so less than half the number of appearances, he scored 16 times and provided 20 assists, so 36 direct goal contributions. He's outscored what was his best goal scoring season last season, this season. So he's on the right track. He's on the right trajectory, and he's coming up clutch, which I think is really, really important. And it's important to have those players, but it's also an indication of how high the player's ceiling is. It's all well and good scoring when you're 4-0 up in a game that you're cruising, adding the fourth, adding the fifth, but he's providing us with clutch moments time and time again. He's done it against Real Madrid. He was fantastic. He's done it against Newcastle at the weekend when we really needed someone to provide a bit of inspiration, because outside of that, I couldn't see how we were scoring. So there's lots and lots to be pleased about when it comes to Declan Rice. But I think we've witnessed Rice's evolution in front of our eyes. I think we've watched a player change role, adapt to that role really quickly and really well. And now we're looking at one of the most influential players in probably world football right now. Is he perfect? No, but who is? Are there still aspects of his game in which he could improve? Yes. But Declan Rice has got all the raw materials. He's physically super imposing. He can cover ground. He's got that presence, that power. But he's also added a consistency with regards to set piece deliveries, to finishing. These are things that I'm not sure were particularly prevalent in his game previously when he played at West Ham United. So he's come to the club and he's developed and he's growing all the time. And what a player we have on our hands. Also, you have me to thank for that Declan Rice goal as well. And I'll explain a little bit about why. So during the first half, I thought Declan Rice was quite poor. I thought he really struggled to have an impact. I thought he wasn't getting on the ball enough. And I thought he was really, really off it. And I was looking at him and I was going, "You're still not fit, are you?" That was kind of my impression. And so about half an hour into the game, I tweeted this: Rice has been quiet so far by his standards. Here's where I jinx it, and he scores a banger. And then, of course, at 5:42 p.m., I quote tweeted myself with a hee hee because it's the way we've kind of come to think about Declan Rice, that even when he's not at his best, and he wasn't at his best yesterday, if we're being completely honest about his performance, but even when he's not at that level, he's still got that ability to really impact and influence a game. He's become a really clutch player, and I love to see that. Really, really do. We're going to talk post-match in a minute because there wasn't a great deal more to discuss from the match. I don't think we learned anything tactically. I don't think we saw anything different or need to really kind of overanalyze what happened post the Rice goal and up until the full-time whistle. But I do want to talk about some of Mikel Arteta's comments after the game. I do want to talk about a post that I put out that ruffled a few feathers. And I also want to focus on some of Josh Kroenke's comments. He was delivering a message to the Arsenal fans via the Arsenal program. You've probably seen the quotes picked up. We'll share some of them with you and we'll discuss them as well. Just a quick reminder, though, if you haven't done so already, leave a like on the video. If you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already as well. Leave us a review on Spotify or Apple if you're an audio listener. And remember, if you want to become a patron, you can. Patreon.com/The Chronicles of Aguna, and we'll be bringing you player ratings from yesterday's game over on Patreon shortly after we conclude here. So some exclusive content to come. Right, really, really brief pause. And when we come back, we'll do the post-match stuff, which I thought was probably more interesting than the game.
You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner. Like and subscribe.
You heard the man. Like and subscribe. Leave us a review. All of that wonderful stuff. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Mikel Arteta's post-match comments. Now, he was very, very keen, wasn't he, to make the point that actually, under the circumstances, and listen, you might agree with this, you might disagree with this. That's fine. I don't want to hear it in the comments, though. I don't want to hear people bombarding me. I am simply sharing with you now what I felt Mikel Arteta was trying to get across. It's not necessarily what I'm saying. But he talked about, the fact that under these circumstances, with these issues, problems, volume of issues, volume of problems, Arsenal did well not to kind of crumble completely, and that a lot of teams would have completely fallen away in this kind of under these circumstances. Basically, he said, second isn't enough. Obviously, we want more. He wants more, but he said it's really important that when you're doing lots of good things and when you're chasing a dream, you don't allow things to become blurry. And I thought that was a really good line. Clearly a rehearsed line, clearly something he'd thought about. He used it in the sort of speech that he gave on the pitch. He used it in his TV interview and he used it in his radio interviews as well. So it's clearly something he's been thinking about, clearly something that, he's been working on, making sure that there is still a clear idea of what they want to do. There's still clarity in the way that they view things and in the way that they want to move forward. He mentioned that we've seen other teams with less problems than us dropped down to 16th and 17th. Little dig at Spurs and Man United. He did try to backtrack on that in the press conference a little bit, but once he said it, we all knew who he meant. And I got to be honest, I'm here for that. But yeah, I thought he was really good. I thought he was clearly in quite a reflective mood. I think he felt a little bit of a relief. It felt like the weight had been lifted off of his shoulders in seeing Arsenal qualify for the Champions League and pretty much securing second place. And I think for Mikel, he probably sees and hears a lot of the noise that, I mean, you can't see noise, but you know what I'm talking about. I'm sure he's aware of some of the narrative around him, some of the rhetoric around Arsenal at the moment, having failed to deliver one of those big trophies again. I felt he really kind of needed to feel the love yesterday. And I think he did. You know, I put a post out right towards the end of the game where I said, Super Mick Arteta, or we've got Super Mick Arteta, however it is that the chant goes. I said, we've got Super Mick Arteta is ringing around Emirates Stadium. It goes to show what the match-going fans think of it. And a lot of people got pissed off at this tweet. Now, it had loads of interaction, 130 odd comments, 8,500 likes, 672 retweets at the time of recording, right? So there was a lot of reaction to this. Most of it positive, most of it people understanding the point I was trying to make. But there was a few people that felt that I was dismissing the opinion of those who weren't inside the stadium, which is not what I was doing at all. I think the reason people use the term match-going fans is because often that is, and it's not always the case, but often you're talking about the people that have been there for a long, long time and are going repeatedly, because we know that to get hold of a season ticket is bloody downright impossible at the moment, okay? So if you've got one, the chances are you've had it for a long time. You've had it for many, many years, okay? And clubs are normally more reactive to the feeling and to the mood of the match-going fans than they are to what the consensus is online. And I'll explain why before you all come at me. You can't gauge or measure or take the temperature of millions of people worldwide at the same time. It's impossible. Social media has helped, but we know that social media can amplify negativity. So let's say that 80% of the worldwide fan base are Team Mikel Arteta and 20% are not. Because the negativity and the toxicity gets amplified, you can look at it, you can scroll through X and fall into the trap of thinking that it's 50-50. And that's not the case. So it's really, really hard to take the temperature of a global fan base online. Really hard. That's why clubs have for such a long time, even with the emergence of social media, tended to lean towards and sway towards the opinion of those in attendance, because it's a significant sample size of people that are there and who are making themselves heard inside the ground. So, for example, if towards the end of the game, Mikel Arteta is getting booed or criticized, that spells trouble. And often the final thing that goes before a manager is sacked is that stadium support. That is fact. Now, some people have chosen to get offended by me saying that. Some people have chosen to believe that in saying that taking the temperature from inside the stadium, actually things seem quite okay in terms of the support and the backing that Mikel Arteta has, that I've gone, well, if you're not one of the 60,000 people inside the stadium, your opinion means absolutely jack, and I don't care about what you have to say. That is not true. That's not true. Two things can be true at once. I respect the opinion of everybody, and those all around the world have every right to express their opinions around Arsenal, because I know there are people that get up at ungodly hours, that go above and beyond to make sure that they can watch their team, and their support is unwavering. And if they could be there every week, they probably would be, right? So not dismissing those opinions at all. But the reason people use the phrase and the term match-going fans is because that is where clubs normally take the temperature from. And this has been the case in football for such a long time. The minute that you end up with sort of a stadium that's booing you or banners against you, that's probably on display inside the ground. That's probably when you know that it's gone really, really far. It's gone really, really far. Rumble says, you said online fans aren't real fans on TalkSport. I didn't say every online fan isn't a real fan. Don't misquote me. Go back, get the clip. I said those people that seek only to slag off Arsenal and nothing else, and who do it for the benefit of clicks and views. I said they're not Arsenal fans. I didn't say that anyone that supports Arsenal via online means, which most people do these days, isn't an Arsenal fan. Come on, man. Like, I respect that we have debates, Rumble, but don't misquote me. Go on then. Bring up the quote. Go on then. You knew what I was saying, and you know the context in which I was saying it. So let's not pretend that I said something I didn't, because there's nothing more annoying than that. Okay, so yeah, let's talk about Josh Kroenke. Mikel Arteta said his piece. We all heard it. I think some felt quite positive based on it. Some felt quite, content with it. Some found it annoying and found it PR-y and all the rest of it. But Mikel Arteta said what he said. Josh Kroenke has also been speaking as well. He said, as a club, we're striving to win major trophies. And on the men's front, we know we have fallen short of what we all wanted this season. Despite not reaching the Champions League final, our run to the semi-final still created some of our best nights this season. Our match here against Real Madrid was one of the best games and most electric atmospheres we've experienced at Emirates Stadium. The game we played at the Bernabeu will no doubt live forever with those lucky enough to have been there. Mikel and his coaching staff, as well as the players, faced some challenges throughout the season, and I want to give credit to the way they managed in these circumstances. It's in these moments you learn the most. So, Josh Kroenke acknowledging the challenges, acknowledging that we've been dealt a difficult hand this season, acknowledging that we fell short at the same time. But I think coming out and trying to just calm the sea, calm the ocean by saying, look, you lot can sit there and you can chat about Mikel Arteta being sacked, which I think is quite frankly ridiculous because it ain't going to happen. But in coming out and saying Mikel and his coaching staff, as well as the players, face some challenges throughout the season, and I want to give them credit for the way they managed in these circumstances, it's basically saying that chat is dead. Like, anybody sitting here saying that the Kroenkes are going to sack it. I mean, Paul Merson was on Sky Sports yesterday. I love Paul Merson. He was a great footballer. And I do find some of his punditry quite funny, particularly when he has a dig and as a little go at rival clubs, right? He's particularly got it in for Spurs, hasn't he? But he said something really daft yesterday, which was, well, if he's not in the top 2 by Christmas, they'll sack him. They'll look elsewhere. There's got to be one hell of a drop-off for them to sack him, because everything that we hear, everything that we read, everything that they do as a football club suggests the complete opposite, which is that they are all in on this guy. Now, you might disagree with that, and that's fine. But if you're going to sit there and say, oh, the Kroenkes will sack him by Christmas if things aren't going right, you're so detached from, what the actual messaging is and what we're actually hearing. He then went on to say, Mikel Arteta, Josh Kroenke, we plan to invest to get behind winning and doing better next season. Our sporting director, Andrea, will play an important role in this. We're crystal clear on exactly what we need to do and the way in which we want to do it. So the plans are in place. Okay. And, I think the club have been, Mikel Arteta in particular, has been keen to stress the point that, you have a plan. It doesn't always go the way that you planned it, and you can't always execute in the way that you want to. But yeah, you've got to just draw a line under this season now and hope that we can have the summer that we want. Now, where I do think that Josh Kroenke maybe put himself in a in a sort of difficult position. Is difficult the right word? I don't know if that's the right word. Basically, what I'm going to say is this. Don't write in your program notes about signing players, about strengthening the squad, about investing in the way that we all know we need to. Just go and do it, is what I'd say in response to Josh Kroenke's comments about investment. Just go and do it. We plan to do this. We want to do this. We hope to do this. I don't want to hear that. Genuinely, I don't want to hear it. And I know there's a fine balance that they need to find, because in the past, KSE, in particular, his father, Stan, was called Silent Stan for a reason, because there was zero communication between the club's ownership and us as fans. So you're kind of damned if you do and damned if you don't in Josh's position. You have to be transparent. You have to be open. You have to provide something. There has to be dialogue. But also, I think we're at the point where after 2 really underwhelming windows, in my opinion, we just want to see action now. So now that you've said it, there's even more pressure to go out and do it. There was pressure anyway, but there's even more now. And that is pressure that he himself has created with his comments. So I just think, for me, okay, it's nice that we've got that communication. It's better. It's an improvement on what the state of play was previously. But just go out and do it. Just go out and do it. And I'm not too fussed about the PR side of it and the talk in the lead up to it. Just go out there and do it, and let's improve the team. And hopefully, with a bit more luck next season, we can get over the line and we can deliver one of those major trophies. Who knows? Maybe they're like London buses. Maybe you miss one, but then they all come at once. Who knows? That would be amazing, wouldn't it? Yeah, let me know your thoughts on what Josh Kroenke had to say as well. Really, really interested. But we're also going to talk Bryan Mbeumo in a minute, because he's been linked with a move to Arsenal this summer. I think Team News and Ticks reported that yesterday. We'll get into that after this very, very short break. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner. Have you liked the video yet? If you're watching us on YouTube, have you liked the video yet? If you haven't, click the like button. It's completely free, and it really, really, really does help us. Also, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. We're crawling towards that mark of 40,000 on YouTube. Where are we at? We're on 39,866 at the minute. So we're less than 150 subscribers away on YouTube from hitting that amazing milestone. So give us a subscribe if you haven't done so already. Like the video if you haven't done so already. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple, leave us a review. All of that stuff really, really does help. Let's talk Bryan Mbeumo then. Interested in him? I'm not sure. I got to be honest. I think he's done incredibly well for Brentford, Bryan Mbeumo. I think he's someone that has really stepped up since Ivan Toney departed from Brentford. I think they really needed someone to kind of take on that mantle, to become the lead, to become the sort of the talisman of the team. And he's done that, to be fair to him. But is he Arsenal level? And some people will say, well, look how many goals he scored versus some of our forwards this season, and actually questioning whether he's Arsenal level. Maybe it's a bit snobbish. I don't know. He's got 19 Premier League goals this season and 8 assists, 27 direct goal contributions in 37 Premier League games. That's a remarkable return. But my worry about Bryan Mbeumo is simply this. He's predominantly a player that operates from the right-hand side. And I know we've seen Mikel Arteta go out in the past and bring players in, tweak their positions, adapt their roles, and mold them into maybe what he wants them to be. But Bryan Mbeumo does so much of his best work off that right-hand side. Therefore, where does he fit in our team? You know, if we're talking about Bukayo Saka, hopefully returning to full fitness next season and being ready to go again back to the levels that he showed probably last season. And we're talking about Ethan Nwaneri continuing on his journey and continuing on his path. I don't know that a right-sided forward is what we should really be looking at. I think we probably need someone that can operate from the left. We definitely need someone that can operate through the middle. Brian Mbeumo can operate through the middle, but I still think his best work comes when he drifts out to that right-hand side and comes inside, regardless of whether he starts on paper as a centre forward. Factor all of that in, plus the fact that Brentford are going to demand a lot of money for Brian Mbeumo because he is their star player and they're notoriously a good selling club. The only thing, I guess, is that his contract expires at the end of next season. So they're in a position where they pretty much have to sell this summer. Does that mean that you can get a bit of a discount, that you can get him for slightly below what his market value might be under different circumstances? Perhaps. But A, I'm not convinced that Brian Mbeumo is a needle mover for us. And B, I'm not sure that he's the profile of forward that we should be looking at. So for me, this isn't one I'd be pursuing. But according to those reports, Arsenal are in talks. Arsenal are exploring the possibility. Whether this comes to anything or not, I'm not entirely sure. But for me, this isn't a player that we should be prioritizing going into the summer. Let me know your thoughts on Brian Mbeumo. What else have we got? Junior Gunner says Arteta will have him doing touchline winger shifts and his goal output will be halved. Toga says Mbeumo can operate on both sides. This excuse you're giving is why we are in this mess. It's not an excuse, man. Like, I'm giving my opinion on whether I think he's the player that I would pursue. And I'm telling you that I think he's a good player and he's done remarkably well for Brentford. But for me, I don't think that's what we should be prioritizing. So, yeah. Cannon Talk says, can Mbeumo operate on the left? That's the only way it makes sense for us. He can, but he's left-footed. So then he's going to be going on the outside all the time, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. But surely putting him over on the left-hand side takes away from his ability to cut inside and score goals, which then takes away from his outputs, which then makes him a less attractive proposition. That's kind of how I see it. That's how I see it. What else have we got in the chat? 88 miles per hour says we need squad depth. So maybe we could do with squad depth for sure. We definitely need squad depth. But listen, I'm having this debate in my own mind pretty much every day. And so I might as well sort of share it with you guys. And I think I've probably touched on it before. People talk about squad depth. And in an ideal world, you go and you bring in 6 or 7 players, maybe 3 or 4 that really can push for a starting place in the team. I'm not saying they necessarily all come in, but can really push hard. Certainly a couple of forwards, in my opinion. And you really go out there and you do that. And then you add a few more players that can supplement what you have, that can raise the floor rather than the ceiling, as we've talked about in previous windows. But you got to be realistic about things as well. We are going to go out and get a striker. That's the most important position for me this summer. That is also the most expensive position we're going to look to address this summer. So this idea that we can afford to drop 30, 40, maybe even 50 million quid on a player like Brian Mbeumo just to give us squad depth, it's fanciful for me. I don't think that we can do a deal like that, a deal of that monetary value, a deal of that cost just for a squad player. I think we need to go out and do the essential bits of business that we need first. And then after that, we can look at maybe adding some different elements to the squad and some squad players. But first and foremost, you've got to do those priority bits of business. And Brian Mbeumo, looking at his profile and based on my opinion of the player, I don't think should be at the top or anywhere near the top, quite frankly, of the priority list. So, yeah. Harambe says, Calafiori was 40 million and he is depth, so we can afford it. I don't think the plan was for him to be depth when we signed him. I think the plan was for him to play at left back. Didn't transpire that way because he picked up injuries. Miles Lewis-Skelly wouldn't have got the chances he did had Ricardo Calafiori stayed available, and therefore Miles Lewis-Skelly wouldn't have broken in and taken that left back position, making Ricardo Calafiori the depth player that you talk about. But so much of this season has been spent talking about the fact that we signed Calafiori for all that money and he's not been available to play for us, and so it was a waste and it was an underwhelming window as a result. So much of the window was spent talking about Mikel Merino in the same in the same vein until he went up to centre forward and helped us out and did a really kind of admirable job. So you can't keep moving the goalposts. Like, if he was signed for depth, then why are people so underwhelmed by how much he's played and all the rest of it? You can't keep moving the goalposts on that. Okay. I am going to take one or two of your questions before we sign out. I know that, we haven't spent an amazing amount of time talking about the game specifically yesterday, but I don't think it really warrants it, to be honest. I do feel like at this stage of the season, given that we've managed to wrap up Champions League qualification, finish in second, etc., is a kind of period of reflection that we're going to be going into now. I've talked about it before. I think the focus has shifted in terms of what people want to talk about, in terms of what people want to hear about as well. Cannon Talk says, off topic, but would another 9 and Jonathan David on a free on top be worth looking at? Yeah, maybe if the circumstances work and, you can get someone low cost in as a squad player, or if, you feel that Jonathan David's the main man, then go and do that. And then, that frees up money for investment in others and elsewhere maybe. But yeah, I think it all depends on kind of what we're doing in the striker sense. I think that will dictate then how the rest of our window goes, because it's not just a striker. By all accounts, we've got Martin Zubimendi coming in as well. That's a big money deal too. So, there's probably not as much wiggle room as we'd like there to be financially. Not to the point anyway where we can go out and drop 30, 40 million quid on squad players. Big hello to Ash as well. He says, morning, Harry. Great seeing you and Tom after the game outside the stadium. Thanks for taking the time to chat. No problem at all, mate. Good to meet you in person. Always good to put a face to the name. Right, let's take a few of your questions. While you're putting those questions in, and keep them coming, I can see there's 3 in there already. Put the Q at the beginning of the sentence. It really does help me. There's just one thing I want to say about the season overall, and about the season overall, and about what we should be looking at going into the window. For me, it's very clear. For me, it's very, very clear, crystal clear. And I like clarity. For me, we need more game changers in the final third. And when I say game changers, I mean players that can make something out of nothing. I mean players that can beat a man, that can score. I mean players that are a little bit unpredictable and are, to a point, the maverick type. Now, I realize that football now more than ever is a system game, and you need players that can then revert back into the system, but they do exist. Those maverick / system players that can flip back into system mode when out of possession, but can then go into that kind of spontaneous, unpredictable mode when we're in possession and when we're trying to break a team down. And the reason I say they exist is because PSG have some, Barcelona have some. And it would be nice if we could go and get in a couple of players like that, just to really add to our attacking weaponry, because that is, for me, where we're lacking. That, for me, is what we're missing. It's been what we've missed for most of the season. So that's what we need to address. That's the number one priority. That's the first thing that would be on my to-do list going into the summer. Let's hope that Arsenal can go out and execute that. Okay, let's take some of those questions then from the live chat. So Afsar says, next season, how do we change tactics to break down low blocks? This has been a big, big problem at home and cost us many points. So I think tactically we're fine. I think system-wise we're fine. I think it goes back to what I was just talking about, which is bringing in the types of players that can find solutions themselves, rather than the system having to provide the solution all the time. Declan Rice has stepped up recently as a clutch player, and he's delivered in some big moments, but you need more of those players. You need 3 or 4 of those players in your front 5. And I don't feel we necessarily have that. Saka's not been at his best, I don't think, since coming back. So his ability to do that has dwindled a little bit. I don't think Martinelli is that. I don't think Trossard's that consistently enough. I don't think Havertz is always that. I think he can be that at times, but he's not always that. Essentially, we need players that can break free from the mold, break free from the system, and go out and make things happen on an individual level. We need individual quality. It's not a system thing for me. That's the kind of conclusion I've come to, having watched this season unfold. Do you think Berta will be the excuse when Arsenal don't win anything next season to protect the cult leader? You are full of positivity. You are, man. Let's see what happens next season, and then we can discuss next season. It's a really silly question, really. The thing is, right? You claim to be an Arsenal supporter, and you claim to be a big fan of the club and all the rest of it, and you do that normal thing that all the kind of that school of thought do, where they go, I've got standards, these are my standards, and this Arsenal don't meet my standards. Why are you all happy to accept these lower standards? Blah 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 blah. But like, mate, just don't watch the games, don't follow the club, don't watch the team, and B, don't watch this if all you're going to do is preempt failure. Like, is that how you go through life on a day-to-day basis? Like, I won't try this because I'm going to fail. I won't try this new food because I know I won't like it. I won't try this new drink that I've never tried before because I know I won't like it. It's just such a bad attitude to have around everything. I just don't get it. I can't get my head around it. Joe says, question, if the first signing we make isn't a forward, there's going to be a meltdown. Good thing I'm not on Twitter much, to be honest. Have a good day, mate. I think the first signing we're probably going to make is Martin Zubimendi. So yeah, cue the meltdown. But I know what you mean. I know what you mean. Junior Gunner says 100 Harrys versus one gorilla. Who wins? 100 Harrys. One Harry beats a gorilla. Does he? No, probably not. No. Hey, I've seen that debate. What is that 100 men versus a gorilla thing? I've seen so many sort of comments around that and stuff, and sort of memes around it online. Like, where has that come from? If anyone could enlighten me, I'd like to know. Jid says, who told fans that because it's Arsenal, it means so much to footballers that they would forego great careers to come and sit on our bench just to make fans feel better about our options off the bench? So Jid basically saying that there are players who have had great seasons that, unless you're going to promise them a starting and a prominent role in the Arsenal team, might not want to come here. And I get that as well. I think there are players that would rather be the bigger fish in the smaller pond. There are others equally that would value playing for Arsenal and say, well, if I play 50% of the games rather than 100%, but I'm playing at a club that's challenging for the biggest trophies, then that's me making a step up. People look at things differently, but I get your point. I take your point. Ian Roy says, how do you think a 9 would affect the Arsenal system? Having a false 9 who overloads the wings is very different from a box striker, even a left winger. Less than 10% of wingers put the work rate Martinelli does. Martinelli's work rate is unquestionable. It's unquestionable. But I do think that he needs to provide more in that final third in terms of quality. Like, most of the time when we get the ball out to Martinelli on that left-hand side, even in a 1v1, even when he's carrying it down the left-hand side, I rarely believe that he's going to beat the man and get a shot off. I never used to feel like that about Martinelli. So work rate, I'll never question. Heart, effort, determination, desire to succeed, I'll never question. But I think there's a lack of quality there, and I think that's shown itself over a period of time. Harry, we are eliminating all the excuses. Squad depth is part of the discussion. Squad depth is part of the discussion, yes. But I'm saying I wouldn't prioritize squad depth over getting the primary targets. Get the primary targets in first. You don't build the squad depth first. You build the first team, then you build the depth. So that's kind of the point I'm making there. Malarkey, thank you so much for your super chat and your donation to the channel, mate. Really, really do appreciate that. Really, really do. He says, there are rumors that Odegaard is carrying an injury. Do you expect him to have surgery in the summer? Honestly, mate, I don't know. I don't know if he's carrying something. He doesn't look right to me. Hasn't looked right for an age. And I'm not sure what I would put that down to. I don't know what it's down to. It's very, very difficult for me to come up with some kind of conclusion. But all I know is that my gut tells me that he doesn't look right. If I woke up tomorrow and there was a bit of breaking news from David Ornstein and he says Martin Odegaard to undergo surgery on X injury that's been hampering him all season, I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest. But I also don't know that's the case, so I can't sit there and say that. So yeah. Okay, I think I'm going to take one more before I sign out. Let's take this one from Sniper Scope. Harry, are you sick of this narrative that injuries are an excuse? It's a fact. If you're in a car and get a flat tire, you're losing pace. Is it your fault if you don't have 6 spare tires? Oh, mate, that is the comment of the stream. Let me just read that again for those listening. Aren't you sick of this narrative that injuries are just an excuse? It's a fact. If you're in a car and get a flat tire, you're losing pace. Is it your fault you don't have 6 spare tires? This is brilliant because people always say, fail to prepare, prepare to fail. But I don't know how you can truly prepare whilst, maintaining that balance of keeping players happy, keeping the financials all in check. I don't know how you can build a squad that can cope completely completely well or completely perfectly with the sheer volume of injuries that we've had. So it's I never call it I never say that they're excuses. I always say that it's context to the season and why we are where we are. Now let me just read this again. Tomiyasu missed 55 games. Jesus missed 27. Ben White has missed 26. Calafiori's missed 23. Bukayo Saka's missed 23. Kai Havertz has missed 23. Kieran Tierney's missed 18. Odegaard 15. Gabriel 15. Zinchenko 13. Timber 12. Marino 11. Now, at the start of the season, our front guys, right? And this doesn't even include Gabriel Martinelli, by the way. Our front guys, that's where the problem has been mainly for me. But we've also had Tomiyasu out, White out, Calafiori out. So we've had issues defensively. We've been able to cope with those a bit better. But to have Saka, Odegaard, Havertz, and Martinelli all out, missing double-figure volumes of games. And in the case of Saka and Havertz, you're talking 23 games apiece, a total of 46 games between them. That's your forward line decimated. So you can bring in another couple of forwards, but even if you do that, you can still end up with this volume of injuries and injuries of this severity. You can still end up struggling. And that's what people need to realize. That's what people need to recognize. And where I think that Mikel Arteta has a part to play, and so I'm not absolving him of all blame when it comes to the injury situation. Graham makes the point, and I'll back it up. He says, Harry, Arteta does not like to rotate players. That's contributed to injuries. I agree with that. I agree that players who should never have played participated in games that they should never have participated in. And I think that's something that as a manager, he's got to learn. He's got to do better on. There's got to be a better understanding of when your players are blowing out of their backsides. And he will argue, and he'd probably push back if he was in the room right now and say, yeah, but I had so many injured players that I had to use certain people and I had to lean on certain people more than I would have liked to. And had I not had this volume of injuries, you would have seen more rotation. I think if you go back over the last 2-3 seasons, this is a bit of a common theme. So I'm not willing to let him, if he did try, to talk his way out of that one. I think that's where we have a responsibility to do better. That's where we as a club have failed. But the injuries have played a big part. And let's not pretend that they haven't, just so those anti-Arteta agendas can continue running. Anyway, guys, I'm going to love you and leave you. Thank you so much for joining me on this Monday morning. Really appreciate the support. As always, if you're a patron, our player ratings piece will be out very, very shortly. Patreon.com/The Chronicles of Aguna. Come and join me over there. We'll do some player ratings where we'll talk a little bit more about the game specifically. We'll be back with another episode very, very soon. Thank you for all the love. Thank you for all the support. And I'll see you on the next one. Until then, take care of yourselves. Have a great day. Up the Arsenal. Goodbye.